Hi, my name is Bart Van Royen, and I am the Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Corner Brook and Labrador. Thank you for joining me for this teaching on the Mass. Today I want to draw your attention to the altar. The altar is the focus, the centerpiece in any church. It's usually on a raised level so that all may see it. Often made of stone, which of course is the recommended material for any altar, sometimes made out of wood, it is a sign of permanence, free from any adornment and no clutter, even when Mass is not celebrated, sometimes used as a work table. That should be avoided at all cost. Except it should have a white altar cloth on it and 2 candles on either side. The altar is the preeminent sign of God's presence and a sign of God's covenant with his people. It's also a symbol of sacrifice. We may remember the sacrifices of old that were offered in the temple, but of course for us Christians, the sacrifice that we are called to remember is the sacrifice of Christ offered once and for all on the cross. This is the purpose of the altar at the center of the church, so that we may celebrate the very means of our redemption, the sacrifice of Christ, as we are drawn into it. Now, a note of caution. We are not reenacting the sacrifice of Christ. It's not as if Christ is being sacrificed or is being crucified again and again each time, as if somehow that first and only time was not sufficient. In fact, we're drawn into that which he has done. His once and for all sacrifice is made present to us, made real to us. And we are called to unite ourselves with that sacrifice. In order to facilitate the connection between the altar and the sacrifice of Christ, the Church requires that there be a crucifix, that is a cross with the body of Christ on it, near or even on the altar. That crucifix should be clearly visible to the people, so that the people can make that connection. In the past, usually that crucifix was on the back wall, reminding us, drawing us into the fact that indeed this is the sacrifice that we are drawn into. Some of our modern churches have used the processional cross for that same purpose. They place it close to the altar in the absence of a cross on the back wall, and so that indeed our eyes may be drawn into the connection between the two. We gather at God's invitation. It is God's initiative. It is God who longs to draw his people into his gift of himself. And so it is by his initiative that we come to Mass. And we are called to unite ourselves, not to imitate Christ. There is no way that we can fully imitate. We will literally die of frustration. But to unite all that we can possibly do in our human frailty and to unite it to Christ. Our acts of love, our acts of forgiveness, generosity, and service. For as he offers himself, so we too are called to unite our lives to his. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you will join me again next week.